Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Temple City Council for Thursday, June 6, 2019. Please rise as Pastor Paul Alexander from the Church of the Living God leads us in the invocation, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Joe Medici, the airport manager.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, creator of the heavens and the earth, you said that we acknowledge you in all of our ways, you will direct our path. Now, Lord, we seek your guidance, direction, and these thou your officers carry out the interest of this city. We are thankful, Lord, for the leaders of this fine city. We're asking you to give us continued wisdom and to carry out the city obligations and its commitments. We ask your favor, blessings upon the leaders, the community, and all its citizens. Thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon us. Thank you for your grace, and thank you for your mercy. In your holy name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both very much. Our next item is public comments. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may sign up prior to this meeting and may do so. Public comments will be received during this portion of the meeting. Please limit those comments to 3 minutes. No discussion or final action will be taken by the city council. We have 2 that have signed up tonight, and so the first one that we'll hear from is Mr. Ken Cosper. No? Okay. You just signed in to attend, I guess. Very good. All right. Mr. Alan Lytle.
Thank you, Mayor Davis, council members and audience. My name is Alan Lytle. I live at 504B Paseo del Plata in Temple, Texas. My note was that I wanted to talk about the annexing that you're going to do this evening, but I wanted to do it now instead of during that, so I could also mention to you some of the other items, the resolutions on the agenda. I am positive that our solid waste department has done a stellar job of telling the planning department that they can handle it. But I'm afraid that they have overextended themselves. We continue to, by bringing in more properties, allow more development, and don't consider greatly expanding our solid waste group, I believe we're going to strain them to the point that we will have a problem. I know in my particular area, since I've moved there, my gentleman who takes care of us has gotten to the point that most times he has to make 3 separate trips back to the dump just to finish his route, simply because his route has grown so much. So please, I ask that the planning department really take a hard look at the number of dump trucks and employees that we need in solid waste to continue this kind of great growth here in Temple. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lytle. Next item is a public appearance, and that is to receive comments from Keith Martin related to the de-annexation of property located on Pendleton Road in North Temple. Mr. Martin.
My name is Keith Martin. I live at 10297 Pendleton Troy Road in Troy, Texas, 76579. In 2014, I bought 2 properties there. My house resides on one, which is on a little over 2 acres, and an acre and a half that sits right next door. Now, what started all this was this year, my proposed taxes were kind of high, and I started investigating my other neighbors around me. Come to realize that the only people paying City of Temple was me and each of my neighbors on each side of me. Nobody in the general vicinity, and I'm going to say within 3.5 mile radius, is paying City of Temple, but maybe 2 or 3 other properties. So I made a few phone calls, and I came up here and talked to legal department, a couple of people in zoning here, and come to realize in 2008 there was a 12-year opt-out program. Of course, I didn't live there at the time, because I bought it in 14. So either the people, the previous owners either didn't know, or they didn't send it because they were over 65. Thought maybe they already had a set amount, it didn't affect them as much. So after talking to a couple of people up here in the legal department, I come to realize that they may get an extension on their opt-out program, or they may go ahead and get annexed next year. So what I'm asking, I'm not asking for any special treatment, I'm just asking to be put on the same opt-out program that my other neighbors around me are already on. Go ahead and get de-annexed for now. So if they get the extension, then I can be included as well with the extension, instead of me paying another $1,000 to $1,200 a year for City of Temple for really absolutely nothing in return. I have no city water, city sewage, or any city services whatsoever. So if I call 911, I don't get Temple Police, I get Bell County, and I know that from personal usage from a break-in last year. So anyway, I really don't understand why I can't go ahead and be put on the program. Like I said, in 2014, I bought it, but I wasn't included. And my other two neighbors, I don't know why they're not on the program as well. So I just wanted to voice my opinion.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for that. Moving on to item 4, which is a public hearing. Item 4 reads, to receive a municipal service plan and conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the possible annexation of 3.95 acres of Old Highway 95 and 89.373 acres of land out of the Maximo Marino Survey Abstract Number 14, located on the east side of Old State Highway 95 in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of Temple, Bell County, Texas. And then item 5 reads to receive the municipal service plan and conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the possible annexation of 2.371 acres of Barnhart Road and 47.655 acres of land out of the Maximo Marino Survey Abstract Number 14, located on the east side of Old State Highway 95 and the south side of Barnhart Road in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of Temple, Bell County, Texas. Ms. Lyerly.
Thank you, Mayor. And tonight's annexation request, as you mentioned, FY19-3 ANX and FY19-4 ANX, they are companion pieces, so I will be presenting them in the same PowerPoint. And as you mentioned, also tonight is the first public hearing for the municipal service plan for both of these cases, and then tomorrow morning at 10 here in the council chambers is the second public hearing for the municipal service plan for both of these requests. And so I have on the screen an aerial showing where these properties are located, and the top one, FY19-4-ANX, is at the intersection of Barnhart Road and Old Highway 95, also known as Little River Road. And so you can see that it's outlined in yellow. And then south of it is the second case. It's FY19-3 ANX, and it's outlined in green. FY19-3 ANX, it actually is approximately, it's 89.373 acres of land. And along with both of these requests, they also include portions of the roadway that is being annexed along with them. So with the case number 3, it's going to involve approximately 0.51 miles of Old Highway 95, which would be included with that annexation request. And then the top annexation request would include approximately 0.41 miles of Barnhart Road for the annexation. And as far as the annexation schedule, on May the 2nd of this year, the City Council, as you know, approved the petitions to direct staff
to create municipal service plans for each of these properties. And so the municipal service plan has been reviewed by all the relevant departments. And so, as we mentioned, tonight is the first public hearing for this municipal service plan, and then tomorrow morning at 10 is the second public hearing. After the municipal service plan public hearings, then we have the first reading for the actual annexation ordinances. That would be, the first reading for both of these requests would be on July the 11th here in the council chambers, and then the second reading is scheduled for July the 18th here in the council chambers. The municipal service plan summary, the plan is required to ensure the same level of city services for the properties upon annexation as other properties within the city of Temple. And the Temple Independent School District, they are the ones requesting the upper half of the annexation, which is at the intersection of Barnhard Road and Old Highway 95. And so the TISD and the city are working together to extend Blackland Road and utilities to accommodate future schools that are proposed for that segment. And the service plan was circulated, as I mentioned, to all relevant departments, and there are no issues associated with the municipal service plans. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Council, any questions? Everybody good? Okay, then at this time, I'll open the public hearing on both items 4 and 5. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. There being no comments, and I will close tonight's public hearing. And as a reminder, the second public hearing on this item will be held tomorrow morning, June 7th at 10 o'clock in the City Council chambers. Moving on to item 6 is to consider adopting a resolution to elect the mayor pro tem for the city of Temple. We need a nomination for mayor pro tem.
So we don't need a resolution, but a nomination. I'd like to nominate our existing Mayor Pro Tem, Judy Morales, to continue as Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to second that.
Very good. If there are no questions or comments, then, Madam Secretary, we have a motion and a second.
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Thank you, and aye.
Mayor Davis?
And Mayor Pro Tem Morales, thank you for covering for me when needed.
Yes.
And that's an aye from me. So item number 6 will now be the consent agenda. All items listed under this section are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member and will be considered separately. Council, any items need to be removed from the consent agenda? Then, if not, then I will consider a motion for the consent agenda, which is items 7A through 7V.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
We have a motion to second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Moving on to the regular agenda. Item number 8 is the second reading and the final hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from agriculture zoning district to planned development general retail zoning district on 160.047 plus or minus acres and a 12.541 plus or minus acre tract situated in the Maximo Merino Survey, abstract number 14, Bell County, Texas, located south of FM 93 and along in the east of Hartrick Bluff Road in Temple. That's not Miss Barry.
Mayor, this is primarily on the agenda for voting purposes, just to clarify that council would like to repeat the motion made on first reading, which was to do a staff recommendation based on an amended application or amended request from the property owner to do PDGR and SF2 versus what was originally requested and advertised as PDGR. So we can certainly do a presentation if desired, but primarily what we need to do is just to clarify that council would like to make the second vote as a per staff recommendation.
Very good. Does anyone need the presentation? Then I will ask the council to give a motion in a second.
I move for adoption as recommended by the staff.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion in a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Item number 9 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting ordinances repealing the following chapters in the city's code of ordinances. Item A is Chapter 11, which is fair housing. Item B is Chapter 20, which is massage establishments. And item C is Chapter 30, railroads.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'll go through this kind of quickly since we talked about it in workshop, but please stop me if you have any questions. So tonight in our ongoing review of code chapters, we're actually asking that you consider repealing 3 chapters in the code, which so far in this review, this is the first time we've made that recommendation. The first chapter on the list is Chapter 11, which is our local adoption of fair housing laws. As we talked about earlier, there are fair housing statutes at the federal and state level that are intended to protect people from discrimination when they're renting or buying a home, getting a mortgage, or seeking some type of housing assistance. Both of those statutes, as well as Chapter 11, prohibit discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, and disability. Chapter 11, as I said, is our local adoption of those 2 statutes. It currently does require the appointment of a fair housing administrator and requires the city to investigate complaints. So if a citizen in Temple feels as if they've been discriminated against in some type of housing situation, they're able to come to the city and make a complaint, and city staff would investigate. I will say that, at least in my 7 years here at the city, I don't recall having a fair housing complaint or hearing of one. So it's not a chapter that's used often. And in addition, we're not required as a city to have local fair housing regulations. Citizens are able to make complaints at the state level to the Workforce Commission and at the federal level to the HUD's Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity. What we've seen in our review is that cities that do have fair housing regulations currently typically add protected statuses, which is allowed under state and federal law. So they can add statuses such as protection for those that have a veteran status, age, elderly are protected but not younger persons, so that's been an additional status that we've seen, sexual orientation, source of income, student status, things of that nature. At this time, staff is not recommending that the city add protected statuses in addition to what's already protected under state and federal law. And for that reason, we don't feel that there's a need to have the local adoption of those fair housing regulations, and we would recommend repeal of Chapter 11. That would allow the city and citizens to rely exclusively on the federal and state laws, which, based on recent experience seems to be what's occurring if we are having fair housing issues here in the city. So that is our recommendation on Chapter 11. The next chapter on the list is 20, which regulates massage establishments. And I shared in workshop, but this chapter was, as far as we can tell, in Lacey's research, was adopted in 1974 and last amended in 1989. It requires massage establishments to be licensed. Licenses are issued by the city secretary's office. They're annual licenses. The chapter allows the city to investigate applicants. We can refuse to issue licenses or suspend them in certain circumstances. But there's also some regulations regarding hours of operation, inspections, and sanitary requirements. And as I stated earlier, they're not very comprehensive, the regulations that we do have in Chapter 20, compared to regulations that already exist at the state level. Specifically in Texas Occupations Code, Chapter 455, and in the Texas Administration Code, or Administrative Code, there are very specific and comprehensive regulations related to the operation of massage establishments, the licensing of therapists, and the running of massage schools, which is all under the purview of the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. Those rules have minimum standards for the issuance and suspension and revocation of licenses. At the state level, those licenses are 2-year licenses, but therapists and establishments are required to be licensed. Those rules also include sanitary conditions that are levels that the establishments have to meet, and allows for the inspection of those establishments, just kind of random inspections to make sure that if they're getting a license renewal, to make sure that they're operating correctly, but also allows inspections if there's a complaint or appears to be an issue with the establishment. So in addition, in this chapter of the Texas Occupations Code, it does specifically state that the state regulations supersede any local adopted rules related to the licensing or regulation of massage therapists and establishments. So it's a specific preemption of local regulation. It does allow local authorities or the city to regulate these types of establishments with regards to zoning, which we do in our Unified Development Code. It also allows us to have local regulations regarding the investigation into the background of an owner-operator into a massage establishment. But as I stated earlier, those requirements are that requirement is also at the state level, so really no need to duplicate it at the local level. And so we have, mostly specific preemption of our regulations in Chapter 20. And as I stated earlier in conversations with the police department, they do feel that they have other tools and regulations that they can rely on if we have complaints or concerns about an establishment. So for all of those reasons, we are also recommending the repeal of Chapter 20. And the last one is Chapter 30 on railroads, one of our shortest chapters. It does include 4 sections. It's about a page and a half. And the 3 main sections that we have, one section's definitions, but we have requirements regarding the construction and maintenance of crossings, the blocking of streets for more than 5 minutes, and then the speed limit of trains. This is a pretty old chapter. It was first adopted in 1935. It was amended several times over the years, but last amended in 1986. And let's see. There's always a delay. Okay. As we talked about earlier, the railroad industry is heavily regulated by federal law. We have 2 primary regulations at the federal level: the Interstate Commerce Commission Termination Act, which gives exclusive jurisdiction over the operation of railroads to the Surface Transportation Board, and then the Federal Railroad Safety Act, which was enacted to promote safety in railroad operations. I won't go through this all in detail, but we do have some specific case law and a AG opinion related to the preemption of a previous state statute in the Transportation Code that included a criminal penalty for railroad companies that with a train that blocked a crossing for more than 10 minutes. So similar to our regulation that prohibits blocking a crossing for more than 5 minutes. But based on this previous case law, there was a Fifth Circuit in the late 90s and then the AG opinion in 2005, both clearly stating that they felt this type of regulation was preempted by both the ICCTA and the Federal Railroad Safety Act. And, preemption can happen in a lot of different ways. You can have kind of express preemption, as we saw in the occupations code for the massage establishments. Courts have said you can have implied preemption. The language in both of these federal statutes is a mix between kind of express and implied preemption, just to make it more fun. But along with what we have here in Texas and across the country, we feel that the regulations that we do have in Chapter 30 are preempted by federal law. And so for that reason, we are also recommending repeal of this chapter. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions on this item? Very good. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. There being none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion on item number 9.
Motion to approve item 9, which are Chapter 11, Chapter 20, and Chapter 30 of the city's Code of Ordinances. I need to rephrase that. Motion to approve the suggested repeal of those 3 items.
Second it.
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Moving on to item number 10 is to consider adopting a resolution approving the preliminary plat of Lake Point Terrace and the final plat of Lake Point Terrace Phase 1, located east of State Highway 317 and south of the existing Lake Point subdivision, with a developer requested exception to the Unified Development Code section, parkland dedication, to allow for a private park in lieu of public parkland dedication. Ms. Larrabee.
Thank you, Mayor. And we have, in this presentation, I had the preliminary plat submitted at the same time with the final plat, which is why both of these items are being presented together. And so FY 1920 PLT is the preliminary plat that has been presented, and FY 1921 PLT is the final plat that has been presented. And they are here because they are asking to have exceptions to the Unified Development Code. And so the property is located, I have on the screen, it's in the orange area, is actually located between State Highway 317 and North Pea Ridge Road and north of Hilldale Estates. And as you'll see, this actually is right adjacent to the area where we have a Stone Hollow Drive, which actually Stone Hollow Drive will extend all the way from North Pea Ridge Road all the way to 317. And so the Development Review Committee reviewed both of these plats on January the 10th, and they were both deemed administratively complete on May the 2nd. And the requested exception to the UDC is for Section 8.3 for parkland dedication, and their exception is to allow for private park in lieu of the public parkland to be privately owned and maintained by the homeowners association. And so they have submitted amenities improvement cost estimate for the Lake Point Terrace subdivision, and the amenities that they're proposing are listed in this list, and they include a clubhouse, a pool and a splash pad, some fencing, some hike and bike trails, and some landscaping. So their cost estimates that they would be have for these improvements would be $645,000, and that exceeds the total park fee requirement of $143,000 for just park fees. And so also with their request, they have submitted a HOA conceptual parks site plan, and it shows the amenity center. If you'll see in the green area towards the center, that is the area where they're proposing their amenities that I mentioned. The blue lines within this plan are the hike and bike trail system. And the trail system actually extends south to the trail system within the Hilldale Estates area where the park is in that area. And so the park staff supports the requested exception with subject to this conceptual site plan as well as the estimated cost of the amenity improvements that I showed you. And so this is the preliminary plat of Lake Point Terrace, and as I mentioned, this actually has the extension of Stone Hollow Drive from North Pea Ridge Road, and it goes all the way through the property and connects to State Highway 317. And this plat also has connectivity to the north and to the south. And let's see. And then the blue area is the boundary for the final plat of Lake Point Terrace Phase 1. So that is the entire boundary of the Phase 1. And so at its May 6 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of both plats with the developer requested exceptions, subject to the HOA conceptual park site plan and the estimated cost for the amenity improvements per staff recommendation. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyerly. Council, any questions or discussion on this item? There being none, then I will entertain a motion on item number 10.
Motion to approve item 10 is presented by Ms. Lyerly.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales? Mayor Davis?
Aye. Item 11 is to consider adopting a resolution approving the preliminary plat of Pecan Creek South and the final plat of Pecan Creek South Phase 1, located north of Southeast HK Dodge and Loop, west of South Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, and east of the Union Pacific Railroad, with developer requested exceptions to the UDC section projection of streets regarding street openings every 1,000 feet and section 8.3 parkland dedication to allow for a private park in lieu of public parkland. Ms. Lyerly.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is another set of preliminary plat and final plats. They were both submitted at the same time. And this is for the Pecan Creek South development. And so FY 1930 PLT is the preliminary plat of Pecan Creek South. And FY 1931 PLT is the final plat of Phase 1 for Pecan Creek South. And I have the property located on the map on the screen. And this property is in a unique location. And because of its location, it is asking for one of the exceptions based on not being able to have entrance into the property except for South Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. If you'll notice, on the west boundary of the property is the Union Pacific Railroad. And also, you'll see that that's the location of the Temple College campus and also the VA Center. And so on the north end of the property, you'll see there's a solar field area, and then we have the Tarrant Park. And then on the south of the property boundary is our Country Lane development. And also, so that those boundaries are preventing the applicant or the developer from connecting on those borders because of the barriers. And so with this development, all the entrances into this proposed development are from South Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. The Development Review Committee reviewed both plats on January the 10th, and they were both deemed administratively complete on May the 3rd. And the plats do comply with the property's planned development multiple family 2 zoning district. And, well, let me go back. Okay, this is the preliminary plat of Pecan Creek South. And you see the blank area in the middle. That is where they're proposing their park area and their trail system. And then the blue area is the boundary for the final plat of Phase 1 of the Pecan Creek South property. To give you a little background, since I mentioned about the location and the different barriers on the borders, the applicants are asking for 2 different exceptions to the UDC. The first one is to Section 8.3, and that is for the parkland dedication to allow for private park in lieu of the public parkland to be privately owned and maintained by the homeowners association. And then the second exception to the UDC is for Section 8.2.1D4B, and that involves projection of streets regarding street openings every 1,000 feet. And it's because of the barriers on the various boundaries of the plat that they've had to ask for this exception, because they're unable to connect to those boundaries along the property. And so they have submitted some amenity improvements involved with the park area, and those amenities are based on the 523 single-family lots in the park fee total for those 523 lots comes up to $117,675. Actually, duplexes and multifamily would actually require $225 per dwelling unit. So those would be separate. But you can see with their park amenities, they're proposing a pavilion in a playground, in hike and bike trails with landscaping and irrigation. And their estimate is a total HOA improvements of $220,000. And so they've submitted a conceptual site plan for their park plan with their amenity center. And you'll see in the center of the area, there's a red area where they have their planned amenities to be. And then also the blue lines within this area are the proposed trails within this subdivision. The park staff supports this developer requested exception per this site plan and per the estimated amenity improvement list. And so at its May 6th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of both plats with the developer requested exceptions and subject to the HOA maintenance and the HOA conceptual site park plan, as well as the amenities improvement list. And so staff recommends approval of both plats and the 2 developer requested exceptions with a new condition, and that condition would be that the parkland dedication exception would only apply to single-family and 2-family uses, not with the multiple family uses. This development actually has single-family, 2-family, and multiple family within that development. So that's why we've added this condition that the multiple family park fees that would be required not be included with this recommendation for the parks exception.
What's the reasoning behind that? Just out of curiosity.
Well, the development actually has a percentage of the planned development approved a percentage of the different uses, and I believe the applicants may want to reconfigure some of those uses. So without knowing exactly what park fees are going to be subject to the multiple family areas, we have no idea how much those park fees are, and with the multiple family, they're based on dwelling units, so we don't have any way of knowing what those park fees would entail, and it's possible that with them switching the areas a multiple family, the park fees required may exceed what have been calculated with the 523 single-family lots.
Council, any questions on this item?
I'm sorry, I do have. Ms. Lyra Lamb Dents, I don't understand what you just told the
Okay.
mayor about, do we know how many multifamily and how many single-family are going in?
We do not know how many multiple family is going in.
Josh says he can answer.
Okay, great.
Or help me in some way.
Yes, ma'am. So, good evening, council. Josh Welch, WB Development. This is one of the projects we're working on here in Temple and happy to get it going. When we originally zoned this property, and so it's laid out all in single family, there are some portions of the property that have the potential to potentially be two-family or could be, potentially have some apartment use on them. And so, when we did the zoning, we have the option that it could be multifamily or it could be single-family. So, in discussing with staff and keeping the multifamily out of it, out of the park fee percentage of it was fine with us because you don't know if we sold some property for an apartment complex or some type of multifamily, you don't know if that's 10 acres, you don't know if it's going to be 15 or 20, how many units would be in there. And then as part of the zoning, a site plan is going to be required for when that multifamily, if or when it does come in. So it would make sense for them to take care of their own park fees and their own parks or playgrounds or anything that they may do. So that's the purpose of then keeping the park fee amount and dedication requirement separate from the single family and two family.
So you may sell off portions of this for another developer to come in with a site plan to do X, Y, Z on that portion.
For the multifamily, yes, ma'am.
And you don't know what portion you may sell off, what percentage of the acreage?
So it's in the zoning. So the way the zoning is worded is that the entire portion of the property, at least half of it has to be single family. There's an option of up to 30% that could be two family and up to 20% that could be multifamily.
So the 50, what percentage single family?
Minimum of 50.
Okay, and then above that, the 30 and 20. I can
With-
understand.
With the option of, it could all be single family.
I understand. And these yellow lines, are those the entrances onto Martin Luther King for the street entrances?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And so the portion of the property right now that it has this potential could be apartments or could revert back to single family or townhomes is if the far north street that's a loop that's totally
Right.
separate, that's a drainage area that kind of runs between there. And so that piece of property that's totally separate is what's sectioned off as an option to potentially be multifamily.
Thank you. I'm
You're
sorry to be slow, but I appreciate you being patient and explaining it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Council, any other questions on this item?
Yeah, Josh, I have one question before you get too far off. I'm assuming that the VA's lake park and their solar panel is fenced off correctly?
Well, and since we have originally started this project and started working through this, yes, it is all fenced off, and we don't necessarily have access to it, and there's not any roads or anything to it. Since we've got this process rolling, the VA actually reached out to Mr. Chandler, who put me in contact with them. And the backside of that lake, because that lake property they have over there is cut off by the railroad in the front. And so if they ever get a railroad train or something parked on the railroad tracks or have people over there, you can't get in and out. So we're going to work with them in getting them an access point into the roadway over there so that they'll have another way in and out to that park area they have there around the lake.
Very good.
Anything else? Thank you, sir. There being no further questions or comments, then I'll now entertain a motion on item 11.
Make a motion for approval based on staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales? Mayor Davis?
Aye. Item 12 is to consider adopting a resolution approving the final plat of Cosper Edition, a 2.613 plus or minus acre, one lot, one block residential subdivision with developer requested exceptions to the Unified Development Code Section 8.3, which is parkland dedication, to allow a waiver to parkland dedication requirements, and to the Unified Development Code Section 8.2.1, which is design standards for streets, to allow a reduced right-of-way dedication located at 7947 Witter Lane in Temple Southern, ETJ. Ms. Lyerly.
Thank you, Mayor. And I have the property aerial on the screen. As you can see, the property is a little orange triangle on the screen, and it is south of West FM 93, and it is on the east side of Witter Lane, just north of Forester Road. And the applicant, during the review process, the applicant revised the plat from the initial submittal acreage of 2.613 to 2.853 acres. The DRC reviewed the plat on March the 7th, and the plat was deemed administratively complete on May the 24th. And so, as you mentioned, this request involves two different exceptions to the Unified Development Code. The first one is to Section 8.3, and that is to waive the park fees of $225. We do have a section in the UDC that allows for an administrative waiving of parkland dedication for properties within the ETJ, and this property is having to come to City Council because of the distance that the plat is close to the city limit line, so it's a distance requirement is the reason why they're here today. And so the park staff does support the exception to the park fees, since this is a one-lot subdivision within the ETJ, and there are no parks that exist within a half-mile radius of this property. The other developer requested exception is to Section 8.2.1 for streets, and this is to allow for a reduced right-of-way dedication along Witter Lane. Witter Lane is a minor arterial on our thoroughfare plan, and currently Witter Lane's right-of-way is only 40 feet in width. When we were examining this property and the location on Witter Lane during our DRC review process, we felt that we needed to recommend a collector classification for Witter Lane in this area versus the thoroughfare recommendation for minor arterial. So a collector requires a 55-foot right-of-way dedication, and so the applicants would be subject to a right-of-way dedication of 7.5 feet, which would meet the requirements for their responsibility for their half of a collector-sized road versus a 15-foot right-of-way dedication for minor arterial. And so staff supports the reduced 7.5-foot dedication along Witter Lane because of the our feelings about a collector status for Witter Lane in this area. And so I have on the screen the subdivision plat that was submitted initially, which you can see it has changed its shape. Originally it was a rectangle and it was only 2.613 acres, but during the review process it was the acreage was increased, and they also have shown the 7.5 foot dedication along Witter Lane. And so that is why I have two comparisons to show you how the property has increased in size. And so they have revised the plat to allow for that 7.5 dedication along Witter Lane. And so at its June 3rd Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 8-0 to approve the 2.5 53-acre final plat of Cosper Addition with the developer requested exceptions to the UDC per staff recommendation. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Council?
I do. What exactly are they doing?
Oh, there,
What's
it's just a residential lot.
That's what I thought. I did the driving, couldn't exactly figure it out. So that's all it is?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Anything else? All right, very good. Then at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve as presented by Ms. Lyerly.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Moving on to items 13 and 14, we'll read these items in together. Item 13 is to consider adopting a resolution pursuant to Chapter 2206, Government Code Section 2206.053, finding that one property and one permanent utility easement situated in the Baldwin-Robertson Survey, abstract number 17, Bell County, Texas, are necessary for the proposed expansion of Poison Oak Road and authorizing the use of eminent domain to condemn the properties. And then item 14 reads, to consider adopting a resolution pursuant to Chapter 2206, Government Code Section 2206.053, finding that one property situated in the Baldwin-Robertson Survey, abstract number 17, Bell County, Texas, are necessary for the proposed expansion of Poison Oak Road and authorizing the use of eminent domain to condemn the properties. Ms. Landeros and Demirs.
Mayor, Council. Tonight I'm here to seek authorization for eminent domain proceedings for two pieces of right-of-way we need for the Poison Oak expansion. The current design requires right-of-way from 32 properties, from 25 private owners and 2 public entities, which would be TxDOT and Belton ISD, and then some right-of-way from city-owned property. The project includes 13 properties that do require owner relocations. As of today, we've acquired 13 properties, which does include Belton ISD donating their right-of-way and the City of Temple property. And we are currently coordinating closings on 3 properties, and one of those closing is tomorrow. And we also have authorized eminent domain on 4 properties. This map is an overview of the planned expansion route, and the 2 properties before you tonight are the one that we call Property 9. It's located kind of at the corner of Highway 317 and Poison Oak Road. It's close to the TxDOT detention pond from the new 317 expansion. And then Property 20 is a whole taking with a house on it at 8705 Poison Oak. And for Parcel 9, we need a .725 acre right-of-way and a .618 acre public utility easement. And during construction, that public utility easement will function as the temporary construction easement. And we've made an initial offer to the owner on December 14th, and that was for the appraised value of $13,717. And the owner has not presented the city with a counteroffer, and the owner, through our third-party contractor stateside, has communicated that their preference is to proceed with eminent domain. And so a final offer letter was sent on May 23rd. And the second property is a whole taking with a house on it. And we did make an offer on October 26th for the appraised value of $239,000. The owner did make a counter offer to the city on November 26th that was more than double the appraised value. However, they did not provide any supporting documentation for that number. And through stateside, we've tried to continue to negotiate, and they did indicate recently to stateside that their preference is to discontinue negotiations, and they requested to proceed with eminent domain. So a final offer letter was sent to them on May 24th. And since both owners have indicated that the eminent domain is their preference, we are requesting authority to move forward to initiate those proceedings. And those final offers were presented to the owners, and they were not accepted within the 14 days required by law. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mears. Council, any questions on either of these items? There being none, then I will accept a motion and a second on item 13. Council, please note that you do have the special language in front of you for these two items.
So I'll make a motion to approve item 13. I move that the City of Temple approve resolution number 2019-9685-R and authorize the use of power of eminent domain to acquire fee simple title to a .725 acre tract of land for the right-of-way and to acquire a .618 acre permanent utility easement on property located at the southeast corner of State Highway 317 and Poison Oak Road in Temple, Texas, being more particularly described as situated in the Baldwin-Robertson Survey, abstract number 17, Bell County, Texas, being a portion of a called 26.3 acre tract of land conveyed to Wild Creek LLC and document number 2013-000-11870, official public records of real property, Bell County, Texas, for the construction and expansion of Poison Oak Road.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on item 13. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Council, have any questions or discussions on item 14? There being none, then I'll entertain a motion on item 14.
I move that the City of Temple approve resolution number 2019-9686-R and authorize the use of the power of eminent domain to acquire fee simple title to a property located along Poison Oak Road in Temple, Texas, being more particularly described as 0.532 acre, situated in the Baldwin-Robertson Survey, abstract number 17, Bell County, Texas, being all of a called 0.534 acre tract of land conveyed to Ross Ann Johns and husband Dennis James Johns in document number 2011-000217555, official public records of real property, Bell County, Texas, for the construction and expansion of Poison Oak Road.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Item 15 reads to consider action on a resolution for an appeal of standards to section 6.7.7.1 of the Unified Development Code related to signage on I-35 corridor overlay to allow installation of an additional freestanding sign at 7455 South General Bruce Drive. Mr. Chandler.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As was mentioned in the item description, this is a sign appeal in the I-35 corridor overlay, and this is to allow a freestanding sign, an additional one, at the Johnson Brothers Ford location. So a new auto and tire center on the site called Quick Lane Auto and Tire Center. And the applicant is Steve Hancock of H&H Sign Company on behalf of the owner, Harry Adams. And Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this on May 20th. So just to look at the location, 7455, once again, that's not only Johnson Brothers Ford, but also Lincoln, shown here on South General Bruce. And this is an appeal to Section 677I within the overlay to allow basically an additional freestanding sign to advertise the Quick Lane business. The code allows one freestanding sign per driveway, and there's a single driveway at that location, or utilizing a multi-tenant sign. And so if it were feasible to add a panel to one of those existing signs, they could have done so. And so here you can see what that sign would look like from South General Bruce. The 45-foot tall Ford sign is there, the 20-foot tall Lincoln sign, and so what they're proposing is a 16-foot tall sign within the landscape entryway. And looking at the plan view, you can see how that would be set back actually from the Ford sign. And just an additional plan view. And then to the left, you can see the specifications for the sign itself. It would be, the material would meet I-35 standards and as a ACM, which is aluminum composite material. We allow that, per the amendments from a couple years ago. And once again, 16 feet tall, 80 square feet, which a permitted sign would allow, freestanding sign would allow up to 200 square feet. So just for a little context. So staff is recommending approval of the appeal as submitted based on the following, that adding an additional panel to those existing freestanding signs really just would not be feasible, that the proposed sign in comparison to the others and what would be allowed for an additional freestanding sign of 35 feet tall, relative to the 16 feet they're proposing, it's much smaller. The signage does meet the other I-35 code requirements, and staff's interpretation is that it is necessary to provide visibility for this business that is at the rear of the property. At the May 20th meeting, Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimous approval as submitted. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the sign contractor is here as well if you have some questions for him. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any thoughts or discussion on item 15? There being none, then I'll entertain a motion and a second on this item.
I'll make a motion for approval as presented.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales? Mayor Davis?
Aye. Thank you all for attending tonight's meeting, and this meeting is adjourned.